On Tuesday, North Korea sent a chilling message about its ability to launch an attack on the United States when it fired a missile that experts say is capable of reaching targets throughout the continental U.S. But 3 days later, the North Korean leadership was signaling a willingness to try a different tack when Russian lawmakers returned from a visit to Pyongyang with this offer. According to what one of those lawmakers told Russian state-run media, North Korea is willing to negotiate with the United States as long as the negotiating table also includes a seat for Russia. Joining me now are Joe Cirincione, president of the Plowshares Fund, and retired Army Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. And Colonel Wilkerson, I'll go to you first. What do you make of that offer that Pyongyang is willing to negotiate as long as Russia is involved?
Joy, what we got here is rank amateurs in Washington and one of the most accomplished diplomats in the world, Sergei Lavrov, in Moscow, serving an increasingly accomplished KGB-trained master of chess, while in Washington we play checkers. In other words, Russia from Mitrovica and Kosovo to Georgia to the Baltics to the Balkans, everywhere, Russia finds crevices, pours itself into them, and exploits the amateur hour in Washington. Putin is a chess master. He's moving pawns, knights, he's moving bishops, he's castled even with regards, for those out there who know something about chess, and he's beating the heck out of these amateurs in Washington. Yeah. This is the latest example.
And you know, one of the people who is in charge of this response in Washington is H.R. McMaster, who said the following at yesterday's forum. It was called the Reagan National Defense Forum. This is General McMaster.
So has the potential of war with North Korea increased since this latest launch?
I think it's increasing every day, which means that we're in a race, really. We're in a race to be able to solve this problem. It is a race because he's getting closer and closer, and there's not much time left.
And Joe Cirincione, does that mean that Washington, because they feel they're in a race to solve the problem, would be more amenable to the Putin offer?
Well, it depends who you're talking to in Washington. And Joy, thank you very much for devoting time to this. As McMaster said, the risk of war is growing every day. I think we're closer to war with North Korea than we have been at any time in decades. This is very serious, but we're distracted from this by the multiple domestic crises that we have. And this new missile they launched on Tuesday, this is a serious new step for them. This is a monster missile that brings the entire United States within range. So you can see how serious this is. Fortunately, there are signs of hope. The story you just cited about the Russians. The North Koreans are practically jumping up and down saying they're willing to talk, they're willing to talk. The Chinese tell us this, the Russians tell us this, the South Koreans tell us this. In track two interchanges, that is informal talks between Americans and North Koreans, they tell us this. And there may be a ray of hope. The South Koreans just last week asked the United States to suspend the joint military exercises that we do every winter, starting in February and March, in lieu of the Olympics that are taking place in Seoul in February. They call it the Olympic truce. The UN has passed a resolution in favor of this. So there may be a ray of hope if this administration is capable of seizing on it. If we can still keep the pro-diplomacy forces intact in the administration, we may be able to open up talks with the North Koreans that could de-escalate the situation, eventually freeze the North Korean nuclear program.
Yeah, and Colonel Wilkerson, that is sort of a rare hopeful note. Is there a possibility that the Olympics, which, you know, in thinking about it, it actually makes the whole prospect even more frightening, right? Even more people, an entire international community essentially assembled on the Korean Peninsula and incredibly vulnerable to whatever it is North Korea would want to do. Is there a chance that instead of making it more scary, that the pending Olympics might actually push negotiations forward?
Well, I don't want to discount the possibilities that Joe just outlined for you. They are possibilities. What I don't see is the ability to take advantage of them, or even the willingness to take advantage. What I see is the president tweeting and doing quid pro quos that are matching Kim Jong-un for everything he does, and our pros aren't as good as their quos. This warrior Vigilant Ace, I guess it is, that's coming up with more than 230 aircraft over the peninsula is the latest case in point. This is very, very antagonistic. This is sticking our finger in Kim Jong-un's eye yet again, and one wonders what his riposte is going to be. I don't see the kind of orchestrated effort that I would hope to see if what Joe's projecting were to come true. What I do see, as I said, is a bunch of people who think that this is too clever. This is too clever by half, Joy. I think they think they're going to scare Kim Jong-un and Pyongyang into negotiations, and they're not. There isn't any strategy beyond that.
Yeah.
He has to surrender.
And you know, Joe, to that point, you know, you have Trump continuing to be just sort of flippantly, you know, derisive of Kim Jong-un. So if in fact there isn't an effort underway to try to tamp down tensions, this is Donald Trump again using that silly rocket man smear against Kim Jong-un in a completely out of context situation on Wednesday.
Small business groups across our nation, retailers, restaurants, manufacturers, grocers, contractors, support this plan. We have tremendous support for this plan. Tremendous. Because these massive tax cuts will be rocket fuel. Little rocket man. Rocket fuel for the American economy. He is a sick puppy.
And Joe, that was supposed to be a speech about tax cuts. He threw in the gratuitous attack on Kim Jong-un. And meanwhile, the people who have to do what you talked about and try to negotiate something ahead of the Olympics are short-staffed. The State Department has no nominee for Assistant Secretary for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, no nominee for South Korean ambassador. Who's actually doing this negotiation?
That's exactly right. You know, I saw that clip while it was happening, and he can't help himself. I mean, he can't help himself. He derides the North Korean leader, insults him, has no effort to come to negotiations. And here's the real tragedy. Rex Tillerson, as Secretary of State, has decimated the State Department. Just this week, we had two former Secretaries of State, John Kerry and Madeleine Albright, unprecedented, criticizing their colleague for the damage he's done. So he's taken away all the people that could do the negotiations, and now he himself may be replaced by a war hawk, Pompeo, the now CIA director, and then Tom Cotton coming in. So you see, this is what Larry's pointing to. You don't see the willingness to negotiate. You don't see the team of people that could handle these intricate negotiations. If an enemy had done this to us, we'd be declaring war on them. But this is what the administration has done to the United States, put us in a very dangerous situation with an incoherent policy that has no hope of stopping North Korea at this point, unless they dramatically switch gears in the next few months.
Yeah, to say the least. Thank you very much. Two of the best to talk to about this, Joe Cirincione and Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. Thank you both. Appreciate you both.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
Joy.
Thanks. And up